Not mottled green and white, okay, not a little bit, just solid green. That's the way to water a Vanda correctly. Again, I just learned that too. Because a little bit of water doesn't make the plant as happy as thoroughly wet. So I think if you give it a little more water, you're going to find those leaves are going to flatten out. What you're seeing is an adaptation for preserving water.
Okay, I've got one of those spray things at the sink.
Yeah.
I just spray it down, but
Yeah.
maybe it's once a day or...
Well, Martin Motes, who's one of our U.S. Vanda experts, says that you should water your Vandas first and last. So, spray it, go do whatever you're doing. Meanwhile, the water's soaking in, and then come back and spray them again really good. Yeah, Jackie?
Well, our Vanda types are where we use the Spanish moss a lot. We drape all the roots because we couldn't keep them alive.
Yeah.
With our humidity, they wouldn't even live.
Well, ours either.
Ours are growing now, haven't bloomed, but at least they're alive.
And what I found, so Martin, who has really helped me a lot with the whole Vanda thing, because I love Vandas. And the Neos, although technically Vandas, they don't grow like Vandas. I wanted to grow some big Vandas, some real Vandas. But in Michigan, we have the same problem that you do. We don't get as hot, but we are just as dry. And that's not where Vandas grow. Vandas grow where the humidity is like 90% all the time, and they get a thunderstorm every day. So they're soaked every single day. So to make up for that, you can do a couple of things. You can do like what Jackie said, put them in a basket with other stuff. Now in Florida, they don't need the other stuff, but we do. You need something around the roots to keep the climate, the microclimate around the plant, the humidity way up. And then, like what Jackie said, drape some of that Spanish moss over there, again, to keep the humidity high around the roots. And then add to that, make sure when you water with a Vanda, it's going to need to be probably every day, make sure you water thoroughly. In the summer, thoroughly 2 times a day. So they're not the easiest thing to grow, but if you're committed, you can do it. Don't be afraid either to just put this guy into a big clay pot. You can do that too.
Okay, our conditions are totally different. I don't have a greenhouse, but I'm growing my Vandas next to my window facing south. But I have them in glass vases.
Ah, yes.
So I fill them up with water and I keep them there for 20 or 30 minutes until, like you said, until they are totally green. And then I just empty the vase and I put them back to where they are.
There you go. Exactly. So what he's done, and I've heard of other people doing the same thing, because up by us, I don't know, we have some stores that are actually selling Vandas like this. You guys have them too? Okay. Yeah, so you leave your Vanda in there, you pour water in, you go make a cup of coffee and have breakfast, and then go pour the water out. And then he's good for, how long are you letting your guts go?
They stay in the water for 20, 30 minutes.
Okay, and then do you do that every day or
every other day?
Every other day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that kind of semi-hydroponic?
It kind of is a semi-hydroponic. Yeah, that's
What do you have yours in? What are they potted in that vase?
It's just the vase, just the
vase,
bare roots.
Yeah,
Just bare roots?
It's just
naked
hanging,
roots.
hanging from the edge of the vase, and it's really happy. Has lots of new growths. I mean,
you are
the
not
roots
the only person
growing.
I've heard say that is working well for them. The other thing that you could do, like I was saying, is so that's a great way to show off your roots too, which is cool. Instead of having an open container, have a closed clay pot, because these plants can get kind of big over time too. Have a closed clay pot, a chunky mix in there, and then the roots are always in a moist environment. The sad thing is you don't see the roots as much, which is kind of a drag, but you'll have a happy plant. So if you don't care about roots, but you want to get it to bloom and be happy, there's an option for you. Yeah, Kim.
This is elementary. I know that if a root is broken, I break a root, the tip stops growing. But what if I have roots, I have some roots that are not broken, and yet the tip stopped growing?
We've been, actually, a couple of people ask about this, and so it's not elementary. When your plant is in active growth and really happy, you get good, long, often colorful root tips. And when it's kind of going into the slowdown period, the root tips, it's not that they die, it's just that they're not so active.
Okay.
So you haven't hurt anything. It's just not an active growth. Because I know, like for me right now, things are starting to slow down and I'm not seeing so much the root tips. But in the spring, when things really start to kick up, you'll start seeing new roots emerging and everything becomes a lot more colorful. So it's just a timing of the year. And I do notice, this is something I found from another grower, he mists like mad. His greenhouse is really, it's like 80% humidity, it's always warm, and it's always misty in there. And his root tips were so long and gorgeous. I want that. So I started misting more and watering, if you know what I mean, watering less. And that gave me really good long root tips. So, yeah.
Back up on what Jackie was talking about, the Vanda roots and the Spanish moss. Would you use that as a curtain or intermingle it among the moss?
I use it as a curtain. Jackie, how are you? Is it just kind of over the outside of the plant?
Yeah, over the roots. The Vanda itself is just tied or taped or whatever to a hook. And
To a
hang
hook,
from
yeah. Florida style.
There's
yeah.
no pot, no media, anything.
Okay.
It's just got Spanish moss on it,
Yeah.
and we just let it grow.
Yeah, and it's
Some of it,
doing
you know,
okay.
that long.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah. Yeah, I end up putting mine into a basket or something so I can get more media around it. And then once some of them I put the Spanish moss on, they've been really happy. You have questions?
Earlier, you mentioned broken clay pots.
Yeah.
And now, how do you use those? Is it in the medium?
No,
Small
I'm
heart
just
bottle?
taking like, yeah, like a shard. Oh, God.
I don't know what color.
I do. Shouldn't have turned toward
Yeah,
the.
don't
Oh,
face
yeah.
the-
So let's just say that it's a big clay pot and this is a shard of it. So I use it as if it were a piece of tree fern or something. And so I just take my plant and put it on there with a little bit of moss, and then just the monofilament and
Okay.
wrap it on there. And it's amazing how fast I will see roots starting to creep along there. Yeah, they really like it. Yeah.
It's kind of like growing them on little pieces of bark.
Exactly.
Like the man was
Exactly.
here last time.
The difference being that the bark is whatever temperature it is outside. The clay is always cool.
Yeah.
And I got this idea from putting together ideas from two different people. Larry Mays is down in Georgia, and he makes something called cool logs, if you've ever seen those. And it's kind of like that closed clay pot. So the idea is clay stays cool, and if you put water in it, with the evaporative cooling, it stays even cooler. And so your cool growing plants will be happy because they're on this cool log. Okay, well, clay is clay, right? So if you're spraying every day, that's going to keep it even cooler. And then Sam Sui is a grower. He does paphiopedilums, but he also grows these beautiful sophronitis. Are you familiar with sophronitis? You wouldn't be, because they're cool growing cattleyas, and you wouldn't grow them down here.
Nope.
But Sam says the best looking softs are mounted. Like, okay, so mounted, I usually grow them in a pot, and then people say the best pots to grow them in are clay pots. Mounted clay pots. I'm going to mount them on a broken clay pot. And sure enough, they are doing great. So don't throw away those clay pots.
We've been using hosiery rather than
Oh, yeah.
so that doesn't go out.
Right. Using hose instead of monofilament. Yeah, if you still have pantyhose, yeah, pantyhose work great. I just don't have them anymore.
Buy some.
Yeah. Oh, at the thrift store. There you go. Yeah. Jane?
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Any other questions?
If you break a long root, will it grow from that or stop its done?
Sometimes what's funny is sometimes if you break a root, if it's off, right? But if it kind of cracks, leave it on there because a lot of times the water and nutrient conducting part of the root is still intact. You'd be amazed. So don't just say, oh, and cut it off. Leave it and see what happens. If it dies after that, it dies, just cut it off. But if it doesn't, it should be okay. And yeah, sometimes you'll get branching above where that happens. So yeah, these guys, they have a lot of roots. If you have one root, you probably have a plant that's in trouble anyway. But if you've got a good, healthy plant, you've got multiple roots. So don't cry very much if you break one. Unless it has a really pretty root tip, and then maybe cry a little bit.
If you don't have very many roots, how can you make more?
Okay, so if you've got a distressed plant and you're trying to get more roots, I think that the best thing to do is to go with a situation like this. Go with a container. The plant's biggest concern, if it's lacking roots, is getting water and desiccating. That's its biggest problem, is it's drying out too much. So if you put it into a closed container, it's not going to lose as much water. It's not going to lose it as fast. And that gives the plant the freedom to just make roots without suffering. So when I've gotten plants that look really cruddy and they're lacking roots, I will put them into a little terrarium or into a little closed container with some moss that is damp but not soaking wet, and keep it closed and just make sure that it doesn't start growing mold or something in there. You can open it every once in a while, but yeah, you'll be amazed. In a month or so, you'll get some good roots growing. Yeah, and you can leave it in there until you feel comfortable taking it out again.
Right. So what about a root stimulator or something like that?
You can use it. I've asked about that too. I haven't seen like rooting hormone. I haven't seen that that's really
Helpful.
done. Yeah,
Or
yeah.
Super Thrive.
And Super Thrive, that wouldn't hurt anything,
Yeah,
for
wouldn't
sure.
hurt.
Yeah, wouldn't hurt. That's right. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, I hope that something in there was helpful to you.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks so much. Thank you.